I'm Jeff York. I will call this meeting to order. Um, we have one item of new business, which is a request for the DRB by Gary and Amy Davis for a final plat review for a 2-lot PUD. This property is located at 52 Cilley Hill Road, which is in the rural agricultural residential zoning district.
I'm gonna just for a correction standpoint, that's a typo. It's actually a 3-lot PUD, not a 2, which is reflected in the staff notes and the warning and stuff.
And we have some minutes to approve from the last meeting, but I don't think we have the right people. This meeting will be held in an orderly manner consistent with the DRB's rules of procedure. Copies of those rules of procedure are available. We'll walk you through the process. You need a copy to participate. The first question is whether there's been any ex parte communication or conflict of interest to many board members on this item. Good. Good, Ben?
Good.
I'm good. So I'll read to you what the interested persons are, and then I'll swear everybody in. Interested persons. Interested persons are those who under Vermont law have the right to appeal and act the decision of the Jericho zoning administrator. They include the applicant, or if the applicant does not own the property, the person owning title to the property, a person owning or occupying property in the immediate neighborhood of a property that is the subject of any zoning decision or act who can demonstrate a physical or environmental impact on the person's interest under the criteria reviewed, and who alleges that the decision or act, if confirmed, will violate the municipal plan or bylaw. And the last group would be any 10 persons, either voters or landowners, who by signed petition to the DRB allege that the decision or act, if confirmed, will violate the municipal plan or bylaw. The petitioners must designate one person to serve as representative. This is important because many people, the public, may be interested in the application, but only statutorily defined interested persons may appeal a decision of a zoning officer or a DRB. If an interested person fails to make a timely appeal, they are bound by that decision. Only those interested persons who have participated in a DRB proceeding may appeal a decision re-entered in that proceeding in environmental court. Pursuant to state statute, participation consists of offering through oral or written testimony, evidence or a statement of concern related to the subject of the proceeding. If there were to be an appeal of the work we do tonight, the DRB does not determine who is an interested person. That is part of the appeal process. We do need to establish who participated in the hearing. To help with that, we ask you for 2 things. Please sign in on the sign-in sheets, or if you're participating by video, provide your contact information in the meeting chat. Second, when you speak in the hearing, tell us your name so that we can record it in the meeting minutes. So this is a quasi judicial hearing. All those who intend to speak must be sworn in. I'll read the oath. Those here, please say I do. Those participating remotely are assumed to be sworn in. I hereby swear that the evidence I give is the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury. I do. Okay. Thank you. So who will be my supposed to say?
I do.
So you can assign them. Okay. And so the first item, 52 Cilley Hill Road, who's going to be presenting?
I'll move up, but you're the one that knows what. Yeah, I gotta make sure you know what you're getting into. That's a revised. We got bigger. So I'm not gonna pretend to know the history of the Davis farm, but it's currently used for agricultural with a single family home and apartment within the home. to my knowledge, it's never been subdivided. That particular property. And the lot contains. It contains a total of 100 and on the east side of the road. Just added up to the 163.7 acres plus or minus on the east side of the road, containing the farmhouse and a farm complex. The zoning is the agricultural zone is a 10-acre zone, so we're proposing lots less than 10 acres. So it's a we're proposing this as a PUD. The proposal is to put the existing farmhouse on 5 acres. A proposed 2.1 acre lot for a new residence next to 142 Cilley Hill Road. And then you have the remaining lot 3, which contains a total of 156.6 acres with a farm complex. Out of that 156.6, the intent is to dedicate 135.6 to open space and exclude an area on the far north end of 21 acres that may have development potential someday, but simply don't want to put it in the open space, and we don't want to call it a lot. The driving force behind all this is that they've been in negotiation with Not Land Trust for some time, and excluded land has been established in that regard. We haven't gotten to this point yet, so now here we are. Within that open space, there is already conserved land by the Vermont River Conservancy at the far south end behind the post office. So yeah, so it's again, the number that was in the staff report is a little bit different on lot 3. Again, it's 156.6 minus 21 excluded from the open space, but not a lot. So 135.6 retained as the farm complex open space. And again, this is kind of, if the land trust thing happens, they've been negotiating for some time that this would dovetail with what they want. So in the end, we're proposing.
So just the paper, the chart here says it's 107.8.
Yeah, I just said that was an error on the surveyor's part. He excluded the Vermont River Conservancy area, so we've added that back in. So, and Joe's got the clean plat, the new, the latest and greatest. I'm gonna give.
Yeah.
Actually, we didn't get it. You guys want to? Yeah, I mean.
I'll need it for the file.
And I'll give you a PDF.
Yeah, we can get that electronically. Okay. So really, the creation of the 2 new lots, the acreage hasn't changed from the original assets. The open space lot has grown.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, and I believe it more than satisfies the 50% reserves requirement.
Yeah. So what's being contemplated basically is the existing farmhouse remains on basically its own lot. There are no contemplated improvements or changes to that. And that will function as a residential lot if approved. The other component in the ask is the creation of a new lot, a new developable lot here, 2.1 acres. The intent is basically Gary's daughter and her husband will build a residence there. And as Justin's alluded to, the conversations between the property owner and the land trust have gone on for quite some time. As they say, this dog's got a long tail. This one is kind of long in the amount of conversation that's gone on. They're at a point now where they've got an agreement. So the nature of the ask is this: traditionally, when we first started, we were looking at it doing that subdivision, but because of the size of the acreage being requested, that's not going to be allowed through a traditional subdivision. That's why it needs to go through a PUD. There was a question with regards to the additional reserved area. It has happened in the past where we've had a property like the Center Sachs property off of Bronze Trace, where basically there is a lot which basically there is a lot that is essentially, it's still part of lot 3, but it's not conserved. So that potential area of lot 3 could be developed. So there is
By coming back to the board, of course.
it depends on the nature of the development. It could, yeah. Well, actually, yeah, it really depends on the nature of the development. So,
Well, so question on that, when you say that nature of the development. So if you say, Chris, if someone comes in, put one house on that lot right now.
Mhm.
All right, after this is approved, they put one house on that. And you technically could approve it, right?
Yep.
Even though we don't have septic on it. So to me, if that's the case, then it's a lot.
Right. So I understand the action. So basically there was a transfer of property, right? So it was a transfer of property for this area here. They'd have to go through a subdivision to create that lot, because this right now is part of lot 3.
Right, you wouldn't want it to be part of the farm complex or open space, so it'd have to go back.
My only question is how we can find in our regs to make sure this is a minor and not a major.
Right.
What's a major 5?
4.
4.
Or you guys are 4?
We're at 4.
Yeah, 4, 3, above 3. So I think the reality there is since this is incorporated into lot 3 without being carved out of the open space. If this were I guess it would continue that way. And if somebody were to, I don't know how I would develop that 20 acres without actually being carved out of lot 3, which would be a subdivision, which would come back to the board. And basically, I think if the board were to approve this, you could have findings and conditions to that effect to put on that 20 acres. So it does come back for that bite of the apple. Now, the land trust, Gary owns this property. So I guess if Gary wanted to put a farm structure there as part of the agricultural operation, that would probably be doable.
So if I understand this correctly, the shaded area is going to be just the rights to it. It's not going to be conveyed in fee simple, just the development rights are going, correct?
But lot 3 will be a farm complex with an area that's not encumbered by the open space restriction, period.
Right.
And it could be conveyed. That was what we were recommending, that it should, separate the farmhouse from the farm in case you want to sell one or the other.
Well, there is a difference between, you have a lot in fee simple.
Yeah.
That lot 3 is not going to be in fee simple. They're only conveying the rights, am I correct? The development rights for lot 3 are being conveyed to the land trust.
Who's going to own lot 3?
No. Land trust isn't even in the picture yet.
Okay, so
So
it's just, okay, all right.
they don't care what you do, and you don't care what they do.
That, my assumption was that, okay. So again, I go back,
And they're not gonna own it either. It's development rights. That's all
Yeah.
it would be.
so it's all development rights.
Yeah.
So again, we have to find something in our regs that kind of allows this to work, because I still see it as a 4 and not a 3.
I don't know why there are any development. If you're gonna have a PUD and you're setting that aside as open land in order to do a PUD, you're giving up the development.
On 135
Yeah.
acres. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, so why would the Vermont Land Trust need to buy development rights if he's already
That's between them. My only concern, Jeff,
My
again, is,
concern is that if we decide that they're not out of it, is what's the what's the, the PUD document gonna say about that land?
the reserve land. The reserve land or the lot three,
30 lot 3.
lot three.
No, this 135, 36 acres.
You know,
I just want to find a way our regs can reflect that. In essence, we're creating it. We have one other hanging lot.
Well,
that's disconnected.
if somebody has to preserve open space as part of a PUD and they do the math and you only need this much, why do you have to do the whole thing?
I agree. I'm not disagreeing.
Yeah, that's what I can't get my head around, yeah.
I'm not disagreeing. I just want to be able that we can write it. And Chris's options to make conditions that whatever happens on that has to come back for the DRB. That Chris can't. If Chris is allowed to put a building on that, then we've lost the ability for the DRB to control it because it's a 4-lot major. If we don't, then we kind of backdooring in, creating a lot that Chris can administratively approve, and I don't think that's the intention. So again, if there's a condition that any further development on lot on the reserve
Has to come back.
has to come back to us, I think we cover it.
I think, I think that's a false safe too, and what really is in front of the board. Is basically the applicant's asking for is essentially 3 lots. He's asking for the lot for the house, which is 5 acres, a new developable lot of 2.1, and then lot 3, which is this whole acreage area here. This acreage here in lot 3 that's highlighted basically is going to serve as the open space, and that will have to be
So that's okay.
that will have to be developed. Those covenants and regulations also will need to be developed. We don't have legal, so one of the conditions if it was to be approved that legals be developed and provided, so that the property owner, not the property, but the town attorney signs off on it. If the owner of lot 3, whoever that may be, has this conserved open space and somebody's willing to give him money, that's not a town issue or relationship. That's between those owners or those two entities.
Again, if the legal documents are written, so that is preserved area and not available for resale or development.
Right.
That would constitute that as being a lot, but again, they couldn't do anything unless they came in for.
Right. I think you could develop it where basically you had, if it was to be approved, you could have, that you've gotten testimony and you could have a finding that the 20 some odd acres that's outside of lot that is unreserved and not part of open space for the PUD, that any sort of development on that, needs to come back to the,
Must come back.
it must come back.
Proposing to build on it, it would be reviewed now as a 4.
That's what I mean, you'd have to address.
That's why you can't do that. That's why we're fine with that.
Yeah.
I agree. I hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be sort of the nature. I mean, if this were to be approved, obviously, we got to get all the legals. There's some things that need to happen. There was a certain amount of some time sensitivity for the applicant to get this ball rolling because of the conversations they've been having. So I felt comfortable enough with the nature of the ask, because in reality, it's just one new lot, and they're going to conserve open space. That it was fairly simple. We could bring it to the DRB.
So,
It's got very high development potential, which I think is reflected in the land trust one. Okay, one.
yeah.
You know the land, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I came from the land on the others. I came from Raceway all the way over to see it.
Huh.
But yeah, as long as we can condition it so that isn't a lot that Chris can carte blanche, put a building on without review. I think it works.
The question, that Dean Davis land, that's been further subdivided, right?
This down here, this is, no, excuse me, it's not reflected. Yeah, it's down in this area right here. So basically there is, I can pull up the map.
That's the Atwood project that we did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Infamous.
Yeah.
Supreme Court.
Do you want me to show you?
I'm just wondering if that part is inaccurate, is there, what else is inaccurate? Is there anything else
So
about that-
Jeff, that's
that
Dean.
Dean Davis property is in terms of a contiguous landowner? All of that property that's contiguous is still owned by Dean Davis, because I know the part,
He still owns up next to you, right?
Yep.
Yeah, but he still butts it.
Yeah. So it's a different Davis.
Different
I
property.
know, but you know, we had all that thing around that land off Raceway,
There's
right?
lots in here, right?
Right, there's lots in there. I don't know. I know that they're not shown, so I'm wondering if is the rest of that Dean Davis property being shown correctly, other than those small couple of.
It really couldn't be much different because that little arched out area is all swamp, heavily wooded swamp. That can't change. And we're renting the land from him closer to us.
This was pulled off of the regional planning tax map, which apparently hasn't updated. So you're right, it doesn't have that.
I can pull up what we have for information that shows you that it'll show you the relationship between Gary's parcel and is it your brother?
Cousin.
His cousin Dean next door. And it'll show you the reflection of where this is the access road, the three houses are here. And then basically the conserved land is in this area like here. So the remainder of this land Dean still owns. That you know, is part of his farm.
I just want to verify that there is no other owner contiguous on what was the old.
It wasn't warned. It wasn't warned for the hearing meeting. Yeah. No, it makes sense. He did, yeah, so that, well. The surveyor went around and said, who's the abutters, and he listed them all. So, yeah, he did show those because they're not abutted and.
They are separated.
Yeah.
They're separated by the joint land and Dean Davis.
Okay, so the HOA documents and the conserved land will show the. Will show 135.6.
As open space, yeah.
open space.
Yep.
So can we want to talk about this 2.1 acre? You have a blow up on that and water flows and. Do you have any contours on that or is it dead?
I did on my plan.
Okay, I can pull it up.
That would be sheet 3. Right there. There's not many contours.
It's pretty flat.
It's flat. They're proposing, for both properties, we have, for the farmhouse, we have to have a designated replacement area. We're proposing that on lot 3. And the septic, because of the neighboring shallow well. Next door, we have to push that leach field out into the lot 3 as well. And so we'll have legal documents.
You're saying the new well, that's a new well, right?
That's the new well, yeah.
The other well's
Yeah.
here.
There's a shallow well to the far right of the sheet, yeah, right there,
Uh-huh.
That's what's kind of eating up the entire 2-acre lot. We wanted to keep the lot configuration at 2, not to exceed 2, and tried to tie it in with the,
So the shallow well has a larger range.
yes, it does, 500 feet. Yeah. I showed a proposed drill well on the adjoining lot, upper right corner, because that's a state permitted lot, and that's where their replacement well is permitted to go.
Up here.
But they didn't put it in, and they're running under clean slate, which is grandfathered status.
Good question, Justin. Will the plot need to be updated to reflect that easement?
Yes,
Okay.
if you can see it on.
Yeah, I know, it's a big scale, so.
I have these.
But the law would fit it.
Everybody's trying to fit everything on a Mylar.
Really?
Where's the replacement?
Can be.
That particular design doesn't have a replacement area because the system is pressurized and sized 150%. So that negates the need for a replacement.
Oh, I thought you mentioned.
Yeah.
A replacement.
Oh, well, you're right. Well, the other house, the farmhouse has one.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, no.
So the question was, Jeff, that this line right here is this line, that there's the easement here, and it would be nice to have it on the plat.
That'll be needed, yeah, reflecting the documents and all that stuff, yeah.
There was something in there I mentioned to you, so there's some verbiage in the regs about when you have open space, you have to have a buffer zone of 50 or 100 feet. Do you know what that was?
That,
Optional, or it's, I mean, you guys can leave that.
yeah, so that, the open space, that sort of component basically is when you have the buffer, essentially the buffer zone, you're not gonna, build within that. And that's for like abutting neighbors. So,
Wouldn't apply to this one then.
not really. No,
Is it abutting neighbors are different, like commercial next to residential?
well, yeah, there's certain components that you need to have basically a buffer area around the
Yeah.
abutting neighbors, so they get a little extra room from any sort of consideration for development.
Stormwater runoff, stormwater runoff. How does that work in this property?
The impervious is less than a half an acre, and it's flat, it's sand. Don't anticipate any runoff, don't even need a culvert. There's already an access right there, for the farm road where the curb cut is proposed.
We had testimony, I thought we had a development plan the other day that was, a couple of years ago, that was affecting Downer Lane. And we heard a lot of testimony about how wet that has to be.
You're actually right, Bar Fines came in and was,
These people are talking about how.
yeah, we ended up denying that actually. But they did their own stormwater design and everything.
Yeah.
And we ended up denying it for other reasons too.
Yeah, it gets wet to behind, Scott.
Yeah, there's
Scott behind the barn, 'cause I talked to the fine guy who's doing a duplex or something.
There's nothing here that's gonna make anything worse than going down.
there's an image for the overlays.
Yeah.
And basically the orange depicts the lot.
Yeah.
And the rest of it depicts all the overlays, so basically, the proposed development, there's no impact to the overlay districts, the wetlands, floodplain, things along those lines, everything is outside of those areas.
It's well drained sand with water table at least in the house area, about 6-7 feet. Very well drained.
Okay, you have questions about this one? I'm gonna give a lot.
I just want to look at it real quick at the lot one.
Farmhouse.
Yeah, sheet one.
Sheet one. They got a brand new septic. In the backyard, you can see. Right there. So.
And the only comment I have just on that is the easement
Yep.
showing along the road and
There's
so
an
on.
easement for the, proposing an easement for the farm well too.
Yeah.
And the easement would follow the as constructed center line of the line. You know.
As long as it's, we can get it reflected on the plat.
I get it.
I know it's
Oh, I know.
in, but
I was a little discouraged when I saw the scale and I'm like, really? You can do 1 inch equals how many feet?
What's the outline of lot?
It says there's no standard for scaling.
no, there isn't. legible.
We have them obviously, but I mean, at some point, when you're shrinking, well, I don't know what surveyors are all producing plats on Mylar size. Are they all doing that now?
Yeah,
They used to shrink them.
not anymore. I say everyone uses a computer now, applying them to scale, to
Yeah.
size.
Yeah.
So they're not something weird.
Yeah. 1 inch equals 600 feet, 150.
Yeah. I've done 120, 180.
So this property will include all the barns.
Yeah,
That's the house and the barn, but the dairy farm is on the next sheet. It's in between. It's a big long property.
so you can see the proposed lot here, Jeff. It comes up to here and then.
Yep.
Down along.
That's the Nature Conservancy lot right there, Conserved area.
It's just, again, the replacement system for lot 1 on lot 3,
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
Which is reflected
Right
there.
there. Yeah,
right when it's on the flat.
yeah.
And again, so you're not proposing any real driveways, existing curb cuts, you don't have any stormwater issues, you're under. So it's,
No,
none of those apply.
Have you applied for the water wastewater?
going to, all
Going to.
plans are all done, yeah. I thought we were gonna maybe go to sketch, and I usually try to time it.
Right.
But I'm also thinking that, if something did change, we want to tweak something, it's okay to.
Sure, well, I mean, that can, if
Just
it's,
condition it, yeah.
if approved, it can be conditioned.
I'm all set, yeah. I guess so.
Okay. So you should go back to the other plot and just show me, I'm a little confused as to where that.
Do you want the main one?
septic is. There's on this one, for this lot. Lot 1.
It would fall, well, you can see right up in the far left-hand corner of the plat, you can see a little clip of lot 1.
Right here.
Yeah, and then there's an easement, a 20-foot easement that runs parallel to the road right away.
Actually, Jeff, if you look here at this building right here, that's the barn that's right there, the 2 little structures. So what he's talking about is that easement, and so on, runs right through here. And I think you can even see the power pole on both of them. So that septic and so on is going to be just off in here, I think.
And that's the replacement.
Yes.
And it's entirely possible that will never get built. For reasons, one, we just built the new one. Second is that when you actually need to build the system, you have to get a permit, and they give you an opportunity to investigate other areas, which could maybe be on the farm lot. So we would get rid of that easement.
So if this was to be approved, we go approve it with the easement, the replacement area goes away or something like that, transpires and.
Right.
They can just.
Plat needs to be updated to
Plat, yeah,
reflect the wastewater easement.
Yeah, well, that can happen as a ruling condition to take care of that in the future if it does go away.
The septic count is, replacement septic, does that count as development?
No. Well, it's no. I mean, it's part of the development. It's not development on its own.
If you sell that land with the development rights, I mean, you put an easement on there,
But
does that land come out? of
Land
the
trust
number
was
of-
fine with it.
Does that
Yeah.
come out of the number of acres you're setting aside?
No.
You said you can put a septic system on
open space.
open space, preserved land.
Yep.
I knew you could do the easement, but I thought once
Yeah, no,
when you're
that's,
calculating the amount of preserved land,
Well,
does that land be part of that calculation?
yeah, why we're talking about that, I think it's important, maybe you can enlighten Gary as to if the farm complex, the dairy farm is in open space, it can continue to operate and as a dairy farm.
Yeah.
Not gonna be a single family home or house on it or
Right.
anything like that, no.
That'll all be basically incorporated into the open space,
Right.
designation and bylaws that, are formed for, for that.
It's nice that, yeah, it's nice that that's gonna kind of, like I said, dovetail with the land trust. If that finally happens, that they all agree with the same thing. They're all fine with that.
Yes, there's a farm complex, wouldn't constitute a different lot. I mean, the operation, basically what the open space language for the restrictions is going to basically talk about all sort of development potential. I mean, it can also incorporate that, the existing uses are going to continue and things along those lines. Will be fine.
Long as it's agriculture.
I have a question though, as far as the town is concerned. The open space or conserved space, whatever you're calling it. Are there limitations or restrictions as far as what the farm can do as a farm structure?
Well, that's kind of what I'm getting at, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, because it's
The land trust allows within the farm complex itself. Even for farm labor house to be built. Would the town restrict that?
Well, to be honest with you, I think I'm wrong, it depends upon how the language for the trust is set aside. If you're zoned ag, or not, if you have an ag exemption on your property. That's where it goes to the ag rules and how the ag rules address it. The way that I interpret the ag rules, I've been through this quite a bit in the last couple of years, is if you want to do something in regards to agriculture for your property. Your first thing, you come before Chris to see if it's compliant. And you can become compliant. If you can't, then you go to the Secretary of Agriculture and they basically will work with you to get a variance. Okay, so it depends. Honestly, I think it can depend on the language you have for the property between you and whoever holds it.
No, he's going to write a PUD. He's asking for a PUD. He needs to have that language in the PUD because we're not.
He's gonna be,
That's what I mean.
bound by.
He writes it in the PUD and sets it aside. He can't come back in. I don't see any way that you can come back in to conserve land in a PUD and put a residence on. Because otherwise, every PUD we ever did, they would say, this is an agricultural house I'm putting on here.
I think it's different because he has an active fund and he's actively as an ag. I can understand your point.
I
Is
don't
that
see
the
that.
one,
And
maybe I'm wrong, but
I would be surprised if we allow someone to go back in to conserve land on PUD and develop it, basically putting a house on it, assuming, farm structure. But I can't believe we're looking at a driveway and
Well, our
septic system and a house on it.
Our definitions do have. We have a dwelling unit, and we have a dwelling unit accessory to a farm. So we have something specifically called out that if it meets that definition for an operating farm for housing, it's treated differently than your house or my house or things along those lines. So there are components that the regulations talk to on that. I understand what Joe's saying, I understand the potential restrictions. The issue is that with state designated farms is they're exempt from municipal regulations. So we don't get that bite at the apple. And so because of that, do we get the bite at the apple? I don't know, but if we end up having it as a PUD and there's restrictions and based on the open space and meeting those rules, that may exempt it, that may disallow it. I just don't have an answer at this point in time to be able to tell you. And I think basically we don't have a copy of what you're proposing, from a legal standpoint. And so it's hard to sort of say thumbs up or thumbs down.
If you have intention to do that, I would suggest you put that. I'll go. conserved space that you're proposing for the DEP?
We have no intention at this point. But there's a couple of scenarios that might cause that, create that need. One is if this is a land trust property now conserved by the land trust, it will always be a farm, but it might not always be my farm. And someone else who buys it for vegetables or beef or something like that, may not want to buy our house lot to go with the farm, but they will need housing. The land trust agrees with that. And this is where I'm
That's
trying to
That's a
decide,
little different than the farmhand housing too, though, you know, what you're talking about, yeah.
well, that would be a farm owner operator house or farm labor. That may be different. The other, well, I guess basically that's it. It's not really too separate.
So I don't know if there's any provision within the regulations or prohibition in the regulations that doesn't allow a property owner of an open space lot to come back to the DRB to want to amend the size of the open space lot for whatever reasons. So as long as they meet 50%, you know, for open space. So if they're at 70% of that lot, can they come back and carve out 10% to amend that? They would have to come to the DRB and they'd have to present it to the DRB, and the DRB could look at the regulations that are in place at that point in time and sort of say, yes, there's provisions to allow it, or no, there's prohibitions that don't allow it. And those types of things. We're asking a question in the future, and we're missing some base information with regards to the legalese and the setting up of the legalese for the open space, as well as necessary review of those documents to be able to say with confidence, yes or a no.
When you're thinking about Jeff, I agree there's two different things at play here. So if you sell your farm and they pick up that large area and your house doesn't go with it, they want to put a new house on it, that's different than you having your farm and you running your farm and living here and doing accessory housing or whatever for the farm workers. Those are two different things.
Those would be the two potential scenarios. I mean, if I continue to run the farm and need farm labor housing, that would be one. But then the other scenario is if and when I sell the farm, the next person that's going to farm it because it has to be farmed.
I think that would be a permitting problem from our end.
Well, you're probably gonna have, if they let you do what you're doing with the 21 acres down where the farm is, excluded area, that's what you're talking about. Yeah.
That's
You're
what I
talking
would
about the town or the land?
For the town, well, you gotta do through that, this is where the town and land trust differ,
Right.
that for the town purposes, you carve out a block around the farm. And you haven't done perk test, you haven't done any of that, I know it's good stuff, but you haven't done any of the due diligence that you have to do to see there's a house site, but you could block out an area for a house site, if they're okay with it, and do the same thing you're doing with 21 acres. But then, does that mean you have to subdivide that?
Well, here's
then you're not putting it on the lot, that's what you have.
so I think to a certain degree, we have an ask in front of us. That's what we have here. We end up having lot 3, which actually 21 acres is not conserved. If they want to amend the open space, they've got 21 acres here that maybe that gets conserved in an area that is elsewhere, not called out in the approved plat, is to become excluded area. And those conditions of the original approval that basically say any sort of development on that excluded area, you know, needs to come to the DRB. So there's potential future fallback if the mystery buyer, you know, in the future wants to buys this property and decides he needs housing there. Or he's got this excluded area here where maybe that's where he wants his house. or residents, so that's where he has the ability to put it, and he needs to come back to the DRB, for that. So. I mean, I think with,
I don't think we can, at this hearing, alter this.
no,
I don't think that can happen.
I'm not sure we're not really being asked to alter it. I think we're being asked to
Guidance.
yeah, I guess we have one of a few options. If the applicant really wants to get a firm answer, then we should continue the hearing. We should get a clear understanding of what the question is, so we can offer the guidance or the information to pick up the hearing and move forward. And if not, and they're happy with what they're being asked for, then the board can close the hearing and rule accordingly. It's, I guess that's where we're at.
So. We.
I think you got to ask the applicant,
I'm asking
yeah.
Jeff, you agree with what he?
Yeah, I agree that,
Yeah.
The bottom line is if you don't change this, what you're talking about doing, maybe doing, that the land trust says it would allow, you can't do that.
Yeah, I think we need to explore that.
So if he adds another white area around the barn side, the farmstead, a clear area without the shading, it's not open space. That could be excluded just like the 21 acres, but they would have to come back to you should they want to build a house on it.
So my question is, we block out.
I'm not sure they have to come back if it's an agricultural
Yeah.
residency. It's not.
That's the only thing we need clarity on, I guess, because quite honestly, I know that 21 acres could be difficult to develop or do anything with, but the reality of sounds more realistic to what he's actually doing. I wasn't aware of that, but.
Well, I mean, I guess the curiosity would be probably the best thing for everybody's sake is to continue this, so we end up getting an answer to that question. And the answer to that question will be reflected in the legal documentation as to the do's and don'ts and rights to be allowed. And that'll allow the DRB to basically make a ruling and have findings and conditions that are consistent with being able to answer the questions and move forward. I think that serves everybody better than potentially closing it and conditioning it and then finding out that from a legal standpoint, that's very difficult to do or something like
The
that.
agricultural aspect makes this definitely different.
Yeah.
Having ag status as opposed to residential open space that's being conserved, and someone wants to try to put something on it. Again, if we're looking at another reservation, I'd like to get an opinion, make sure we're not in the major. And not that we couldn't accommodate it now, because we'll have 2 meetings anyway.
Right.
So,
Right, yeah, I mean, the reality, the easy fix for this ask would have been if we could have done a 2-acre lot in this zone. It would have just been a subdivision. But since it's a PUD, we've got these other layers of considerations that we need to review, but it also allows them to do a 2-acre lot in a 10-acre zone. So.
So before I continue, I'd like to ask you, did you have any feedback from any of the town committees?
Any of the advisory committees, no.
We have on there. Conservation Commission, Trails Commission.
I think I'll have to go back to an email. I believe the Conservation Commission, because everything was outside of the overlays.
Yeah.
And the nature of what was being proposed here for conserving, that they didn't have any concerns, but I may have an email to that effect. I just don't remember.
We already continue it, when we continue it too.
I couldn't hear.
I just want to ask a
comment.
question, when would we continue to, and then we can get.
Okay.
Or could vote.
I would, I would recommend, because of the nature of our schedule in September, we'll be meeting once that the next available area that would work probably both for the applicant as well as the DRB is, I believe it's October 11th is the date.
October.
Yes. We're only meeting once in September. And that's the 13th. And I think that's probably too short a window to be able to get the answers to those things.
At this point, yeah.
Fine.
Okay, so that would be the date. So did we ask for, can I ask for a comment?
Yeah, I think we got public here. We Ben, I don't know if Ben's got any thoughts on this, and then basically you can see if the public wants to add anything, and then
Can I ask one more question? So before this next hearing, can you continue it? You're gonna get us some feedback as whether or not that can even be done or how it can be done?
yeah, we'll end up doing that. Have you guys worked with have you started talking to an attorney yet with regards to the different conservation stuff and stuff along those lines? Okay, yeah, so what would be good is if you can get your attorney to get a hold of me, and I can sort of update him or her on the discussion and what we're looking for, because it's really more incumbent upon you guys to develop it and then us to basically comment on it. But I think we can. It shouldn't be that difficult to get the ball rolling. So.
I wasn't 100% on the same page as him as far as farmhand versus a house. The idea was they could sell the farm. Doesn't mean the farm means you can build a house on it, but that's what he wants, that flexibility, so.
Well, it's a good, I would think it makes sense. Too, honestly. I didn't contemplate. I wasn't thinking that far ahead.
I didn't think he was ever going to leave the farm.
Hence the reason I plan on this being a sketch. I plan on this being a sketch. Yeah, so now it's kind of like a
Good
sketch.
catch, Gary. The good catch. I've been running up that question.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, it serves you and your interests and anybody else in the future very well to get an answer to that question.
Right. You want to get it.
Okay, so I'll open up for any public comment.
We'll see if Ben has anything to.
Ben, do you have any comments, any questions here? Sorry.
I'm good, thank you.
All right, is there any public comment from anybody here in the room? No? And how about online?
If you have comment, you can raise your hand and I'll invite you into the meeting. If not, then I guess listen to whatever sort of continuation or motion that the board makes, so you're informed as to when this may be taken back up.
We gave the October what?
I believe it's the 11th. I don't have my calendar right in front of me, but
Oh, should I make a motion to continue this hearing to October?
October 11th is a Friday.
it's a Friday,
Be the 9th.
the 9th. That's a Wednesday. Okay,
Yeah, the 9th would be the second Wednesday.
okay, thank you.
I'll make a motion to continue this to date certain October 9th.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, we will continue this hearing until October 9th.
Sketchy here. Sketch like.
Okay,
All right.
And we can do then in the interim, we can get like the easement shown and the plat just adjusted. things like that.
It's
Yeah.
fine. I mean, yeah. We, at least we come quite complete when we're here. I mean, so that there's a lot less stuff to debate.
As far as plan wise, I think we're there. Nuances.
okay.
I think fine.
You want that? That's mine, but if you want it, you can have it.
No, this one's mine.
We
My
all,
hand scratching.
Yep, you're all set.
That's not your hand scratcher, that's my hand scratcher.
Yeah.
thank you, gentlemen.
I see.
All right, thank you. So,
I'll be back in a minute.
yeah, okay, Gary, just make sure you have your attorney, track me down or whatever, and we'll have a discussion on to the next things we need to get taken care of. And when you talk with them, you can let them know the nature of the discussion and what really express to them what you want to make sure happens, just to protect things. And we can get it, we can see what we can put together.
Okay.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
I can't vote on the minute.
No.
We don't have a quorum, so we can't vote on the minutes, unfortunately. Ben, if you can hang out for a second, I guess you can go ahead and close the public hearing.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing at 7:59.
I'm going home to bean and potato soup,
What?
bean and potato soup. Fresh green beans,
Ah.
fresh potatoes, milk.
He's coming back in to talk about.
Yeah. So Joe, you're welcome to stay if you want to hear about the new board member, you're an alternate, or if you want to go have your bean and potato soup.
He's qualified.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Okay,
Have a great evening.
so I need,
Not updated yet, right?
no, that has not been updated yet. So I need I'm gonna stop the recording. Hold on, let's.